This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all.
Welcome back to another episode of Rostra. We've got Cassie Brackett with us today, and it seems that we talk a lot about mythology on Rostra. We've had people last season. We've already had some mythology. We talked about this season, and we're back to mythology, but in a way that I'm guessing as some people who are maybe not big mythology buffs may not know about some of the groups. I'm going to get kind of out what we're talking about here. Some of the groups that you're going to talk about, they may not know about those. So first of all, Cassie, what is your topic and why did you pick it?
So I did mythological groups. I'll be going over Fates, Furies, Muses, Centaurs, and Satyrs and Nymphs, not particularly in that order. I just said what I remembered. And,
Sure.
I picked it because when I was a kid, and I was always into like mythological and legendary creatures, and mainly when I was a kid, it was more Irish than anything, like fays and unicorns. Yeah, because I'm a very Irish family, right? And so I was always into everything.
Interesting.
So I used to research them a lot as a kid, and yeah, I always really liked them.
So you knew that as a child, the Irish stuff. When did you first even become aware that there were these Greco-Roman mythological groups?
I mean, around the same time, because I knew about mainly I learned about like the fates and stuff, like with Hercules.
Okay,
really,
sure, right.
The fates that I'm going to be talking about are different. Like the ones that are in Hercules are called the fates, but are like Graii.
Oh, okay,
in Greek.
Okay.
They're the ones they share the one eye.
Share the one eye,
fates
right?
Don't. So.
Yes, right, and you're referring to Hercules, the movie, right? The Disney,
Disney movie.
Which so many people
know.
Which so many people know, and we had an earlier episode this season about the 12 Labors of Hercules,
Robbie,
and Robbie Fraga was our guest on that episode, and talking about some of that. So it is interesting to me that as you think about I always connect mythology with the superheroes, because the superheroes of today, that really is our kind of mythology, right? And so you think
of Love and Thunder. Well, it's just gods.
And see, we've got the groups, right? So you've got the Guardians of the Galaxy, you've got the Avengers, you've got the Justice League, right? And so you have those kinds of groupings of superheroes today. Similarly, we've got these groups in the ancient world. So walk us through, start us off, give us a group, and tell us a little bit about it.
So first, I'm going to start with the Fates.
Okay.
And I'm going to be so I mainly went off, there's two different versions of each, right, for Greek and Roman, but I'm mainly going off, what was on my topic.
Okay,
I'll mention the other mythology, but I won't go deeper into that like I would, the Greek or Roman that's, centered.
Sure.
So the Fates in Greek are known as the Graii, and unlike Hercules, the Fates do not, in Hercules, they don't share an eye. They all have their own eye, and they're not, old hags, if you will. They're beautiful young women. And they're three sisters who decide birth, life, and death.
Yep.
Clotho, who is the spinner, weaves the thread of life of every human while they're in the womb. And because of this, she's a symbol of birth. And she's just hey, this is when it's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. And Lachesis does the same too. She's the allottor. She so you have free will, right? But they will put in every single big event in your life.
And we'll come back to that. We'll come back to the fate versus free will thing. That is such a wonderful topic, and
it's very interesting.
Well, yeah, and sometimes it almost seems like, well, if they're spinning the thread of my life, then do I really have any free will? And
it's kind of like God in a way, where it's he knows what's going to happen in your life, but you have free will regardless. It's interesting.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And that truly could be not just a separate episode, but probably a series of episodes, really getting into some of the heavy philosophical and theological things. So you mentioned two, and then who's the third?
The last one is Atropos, whose name means the unturnable. She's ironically named that because she's the most stubborn And she's like, she'll cut the thread, like, yep, you're dead now. You got it.
Okay. So you got those three. And the thing that just right there, a lot of people will talk about even today just fate as a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was my fate to, become a
I
superstar or
definitely
whatever.
believe in fate. Like,
But-
oh my God, this happened, it's meant to be, or, oh, this is the sign to not do that.
But-
Like, I believe in that.
Yeah, but the thing about that is the kind of the concept or idea of fate, whereas in the ancient mythology, you've really got them personified, as you said, with these three women.
The fates are actual
and
people.
Exactly, in these very particular activities there. All right, so give us another group. Go to another group. What else?
Well, I have a little bit extra.
Oh, okay. Give us a little bit more on them, and then
The
hit
fates
us
are
with the
either,
next.
like, they're mainly shown as, like, young goddesses that, like, oh, they're so graceful, and then there's Atropos who's just like, or they're, like, again, like, old hags. No one in, like, mythology is consistent in their, like, in their looks. No
Yeah.
one is ever consistent, and that's very funny to me. Okay, next I have Furies, which, are known as Erinyes or Eumenides.
Okay.
As well.
Eumenides,
They are
mhm.
the gods and deities of vengeance. There are three sisters: Alecto, who's known as the Unceasing in quotations; Tisiphone, avenging murder; and Megara, not to be confused with Megara, who is
Right.
Hercules' wife.
Right.
Who he killed.
Right.
That's not my episode. And she is the grudging, because, like, most of my sources, every time I looked up Megara, like, Megara always showed up. And it's like, no, you're not who I want.
Exactly. Now, the Furies, you said, so avenging. Tell us a little bit more about what their story is about and what they really do.
So I've seen, like, two different things in total. They are either the daughters of Gaia and Uranus, who are the gods and goddess of earth and sky, or Hades and Persephone. And they are the goddesses of vengeance, and they basically punish people who commit crimes like murder, and adultery.
Well, okay, so yes, a couple of things there. One, I say this all the time, and it's difficult, I think, for modern people to kind of get their head around this. We're used to seeing a particular sacred text, right? Like the Bible or the Quran or something like that, right?
There's no love
That's
away.
just not what you've got. And you mentioned two different versions, two different stories there. What you got to understand about, or what people need to understand about the ancient mythology, it's almost like folk stories. And so as people move around from city to city or island to island, especially around Greece, they bring their folk stories with them, they tell them, they get changed, they get passed on, and so we get these kind of different versions there.
Yeah, and that's, like, exactly what mythology is, because, like, as mythology gets older, the story will change.
Absolutely.
And same with legends as well.
Right.
This is mythology. So.
And then you're talking about, the vengeance, and you said specifically about adultery. So originally the Furies were avenging spirits for wrongs done to women. They were very specifically about that. And so, again, you can see
That
where
reminds me of one.
the
Urban
adultery thing would
legend.
come in. Yeah.
You can add that out.
So and lots of mythology and oh my goodness, some great Greek plays that involve the Furies and significant characters within some of those stories.
They're also in the video game Hades, which I did not know was a video game until I made this.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, I'm past the video game stage of my life, so I certainly did not know
I
that.
love, like, God of War and stuff, so I will be looking into that game.
There you go. All right, give us another group.
Oh, well, I was still talking about this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Electa's job was to, and she was mainly shown as, like, the fiery one, like, fiery.
Yes.
Electa's job was to punish humans for crimes from anger, especially said crime was towards other people. Tisiphone possessed shape-shifting, and her names mean Avenger of Murder. As I said, she punished, murderers.
Yep, that was Tisiphone, right?
Yeah. A story says Tisiphone fell in love with a mortal named Curephon. I could not figure it out.
And I think for the sake of our listeners, we probably don't need to go into maybe that much detail for them, but I mean, you're getting the gist of it for
But
them.
he had rejected her, and she's like, okay, well, you're dead now. Here, get bit by a snake.
Yeah.
And then Megara comically punished humans who committed infidelity with their partners and oath breakers.
There you
and she
go.
also punished thieves and transgressors.
Very good.
Yada,
Very
yada,
good.
yada.
All right, so we've had Fates, we've got Furies. Who else do we have for groups?
Now we have Centaurs.
Centaurs.
And
Who are the Centaurs? Or maybe I should say, what are the Centaurs?
So I'll be talking about what the Centaurs are, and like then Chiron and Pholus as well, because they're like very important ones who are away from the stereotype. So the stereotype of Centaurs are they're half man, half horse, right? Most people know that. They're very unruly and very erratic in a way.
Yes.
They're angry.
Yes.
They hang out a lot with Dionysus, who is the god of wine, and when they were drunk, they got angry.
Something of a hot mess. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Raging alcoholics, if you will.
You could put it that way. All right. And so now, who are these two that are kind of the NBA stars, if you will, of the Centaurs?
Chiron was the son of the Titan Cronus and the sea nymph named Philia. He was calm rather than violent, and he was a healer. And to save, he named the wounded healer, not wanted. Sorry. After being shot with a poisonous arrow by Hercules, he gave up his mortality for Prometheus and was put into the sky as a constellation, Centaurus.
Very good.
And then there was Pholus, who is a friend of Hercules that accidentally killed himself with a poisonous arrow, saying, "How the heck could a centaur die this easily?" Well, he died.
Got to be careful making mistakes like that.
We get this legend, and then how the heck did I die so easily?
Yes.
And one thing I will add: centaurs, they were angry, but they weren't necessarily wicked. They weren't like evil creatures. They didn't do it just to do it.
Yeah.
They just did it because.
It's been a long time since my children were little, and so for me to be well remembering on Percy Jackson, but don't centaurs figure strongly into the Percy Jackson?
I'm not done with Percy Jackson. I'm at the 4th book because I have just been on a very big hiatus.
Gotcha.
I just need to finish it.
Okay. All right. So we got centaurs. Who's next?
Satyrs.
All right.
And Grover from Percy Jackson is a satyr.
Grover is a satyr. Yes, indeed.
Satyrs were male creatures. I'm pretty sure centaurs were male too. Yeah,
yes.
Sorry. I forgot to mention that. Satyrs were male creatures who lived in the woodlands and forests, and I can't remember his name, but the guy in Hercules who trained Hercules, he was a satyr. They have goat legs, in most depictions they had goat legs. Sometimes they didn't.
It's usually where centaurs were the half human, half horse. Satyrs typically think of the half human, half goat. Right. So what's their story?
They also accompanied Dionysus, the god of wine. Their closest female counterparts are the nymphs, and they loved women.
They were pretty rowdy also.
They were pretty
rowdy.
They had a naughty, quote unquote, naughty, reputation.
Indeed they did.
They had a huge appetite, and they just got getting intimate with women, if you will.
They
loved women.
We'll leave it to say that they partied pretty hard, right? They partied pretty hard, right? Okay.
Silenus is a famous satyr who tutored Dionysus, or was his foster father.
Yes.
Either he's his tutor or he's his foster father who Hermes entrusted in his care after he was born from the thigh of Zeus.
Right.
It's very different. I don't even know. It really just depends. He is the god of winemaking and drunkenness. And Pan is the god of shepherds and forests and the wilds and hunters, all that. The story of his birth was that Odysseus' wife, Penelope, slept with 108 suitors while he was away at the Trojan War, and one of those suitors was Hermes, resulting in the birth of Pan. And over time, Pan just got really close to nature in the woods, and he became the god of shepherds and fields.
And to the interesting thing, there's an instrument that we often refer to as the panpipes. Mm-hmm. So these little reeds that are put together and sort of a wind sort of instrument.
Put that together. There. Why did I not put that together? Yeah, oh my God! I saw photos of him.
Yeah. So we've had satyrs and centaurs, and we've had furies and fates. Any other groups?
There are muses and nymphs left.
Muses and nymphs.
And
all right.
Unlike in Percy Jackson, satyrs, I don't think actually ever went off to go search for Pan as they did in Percy Jackson.
Go ahead. I'm going to ask that you do
You said Muses and...
Nymphs.
Go ahead and do Nymphs next. Let's end with Muses. 'Cause I
Okay.
think
Yeah, the Muses are really cool.
That's a big group, right?
There are so many kinds of nymphs. Oh my god, this is like, I almost took up 2 pages. I didn't. I shortened it, but...
So who or what are nymphs?
So nymphs, like I said before, are like the human, or not human, no, sorry. Female, like the closest female counterpart to satyrs of how close they are to nature.
Okay.
And stuff. And they are a large class of not so important, but still important female deities, or divinities, whatever, that match the water or earth and commonly associated with fertility and growth.
And very much, you right on to talk about nature. We typically think about these little spirits or sprites, sometimes we'll call them.
That's basically what they are.
Yeah, spirits or sprites, and you mentioned the woodlands. We associated them with water
A lot
as
of
well.
different types. Like there's not just like one type of them for water. There's like a different type for sea, a different type for lakes and ponds, and different type for rivers. And oh my God, there's so many.
Right. Well, and you got to think about the fact that so many people in the modern world are a little bit separated from nature, right? We live in cities and suburbs and these kinds of things. But really, the ancient world, even with a city like Rome or Athens, you're not as far away, I think, sometimes from nature and country life as maybe some of us are today. So you're going to have those kinds of creatures and characters in the stories of people who live so close to nature. So
fun fact about nymphs, they were not immortal, but they lived until the water of their, like, where they lived dried out. And then another thing was when a nymph is born, like a tree grows. Or it's very interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's end on the biggie, let's go to the Muses now. And
the 9 sisters.
Truly, we wouldn't have some of the mythological stories really were it not for some of these muses, because some of the poets, when they write the stories in the ancient world, they will ask for the help of the muses to write their stories. So really, these people are hugely important. So who and what are muses?
Well, the 9 muses represent literature, the arts, and sciences, and they are sisters. And they were born because Zeus had an affair with Nemesis 9 days straight. And that's not how it works, but 9 girls were born. So.
Okay, all right. So yes, Mnemosyne is her name. She was connected with memory. Yeah. And so there are 9 of these.
And the daughter of Uranus and Gaia, I think. Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
It really just depends.
So you already kind of alluded to something. Each of these kind of has a separate area that she's responsible for, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the areas that the 9 muses are in charge of?
So I'm going to start with Talia. She is the muse of comedy and comedic poetry, and she's commonly depicted with, like, theatrical masks with like the smile and the frown to represent comedy and tragedy.
Those masks, exactly right.
Talia is usually depicted with either that, like laughing comedy masks, or a wreath of ivy.
Okay. All right, so just kind of real quickly, just hit each one and what they're about, because then I want I want to tie it all together here with everybody. Yeah.
Melpomene is the muse of tragedy, and she is shown with said tragedy theatrical mask with the crying and the sad, like, oh, woe is me.
Right.
Cleo is a muse of history and is commonly shown with a book or like writing in a book. Euterpe is the muse of lyrical poetry and is shown with a flute. Oh my god, I can't read. Terpsichore is the muse of music and dancing, is commonly shown with a harp.
Right.
Erato is the muse of intimate,
kind of love poetry. Love poetry, right.
Did not know how to word it. Shown with a wreath of myrtle and roses.
Good.
Calliope is the muse of epic poetry and sometimes is known as the chief of all muses, in quotations, and she is shown with a lyre. I also saw that someone else is with a lyre, but I don't know. I had her with the lyre. Urania is the muse of astronomy. Oh my god.
Right.
And commonly shown with a celestial globe and such. Polyhymnia is a muse of harmony and commonly shown with one finger up due to her seriousness.
Yes.
And the muses, and that's really all I... Oh, and the word museum comes from the muses.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. The word museum comes from that. And the idea that all these different areas, and you think about it, the areas of things that we study in school, right? Science and history and art and the performing arts and all those kinds of things. They all had their one muse really kind of in charge
Talia
of
was
that.
also the muse of geometry.
So
but
even
I
getting
didn't
in,
do that.
yeah, even getting in some of that. I got to tell you, Cassie, we could have gone on and made this a
Oh my God,
two-part.
they all could be their own episode.
And each one of these could be their own episode. So hopefully this will have sparked some interest in
I
people
wrote down a lot more than I said.
Yeah, well, hopefully this will have sparked some interest in people to go out and investigate things for themselves. Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GarinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.